Welcome to the A2 Show with Andrew Cass and Aaron Parkinson, bringing you the trends and topics that affect our lives the most: business, politics, fitness, family, and finance. With over 50 plus years of combined business experience and over $1 billion in revenue generated, your hosts have a unique gift for seeing many steps ahead where others do not. They bring their unfiltered, contrarian views to the show every week to help you win in business and in life.
Oh boy, it's bad. Good to be back after a long summer hiatus here, Aaron. I feel like we haven't been live in about a month. I've got a list this big. Can you see the list of things we need to talk about here today?
It's a big list.
We've had a former president assassination attempt. We've had a current president drop out of a future race. We've had a candidate installed that's never happened before. And boy, oh boy, is it leading to a lot of instability and uncertainty when it comes to not only politics, but I think it's spilling into economics big time. I'm looking at the stock market today, down about 1,000 points as we speak. So, wow.
Yeah, we got a lot to cover today, and I was actually on vacation with my family for a couple of weeks, and you were blowing up my phone going, we need to do a show.
We need to better get live quick.
We need to go. And you were like, I hate you. And I'm like, well, I could do it from this, this cruise ship with my laptop and my headphones, but that's not really our style. So you were like, get back quick. We got lots to talk about.
So what you're saying is I ended your vacation single-handedly early to get you back in the studio to talk about America on the brink of collapse. Does that sound about right?
Ish.
Anyways, good to be back here, everybody. We've got a lot to cover here today. I want to talk about these three topics. We haven't even discussed the assassination attempt on Trump, so you'll get our take on that. Me as an American, Aaron as a Canadian, and now
and I think we're gonna have very different takes on that. I can't wait to talk about it.
Yeah, we can. And then we're going to talk about Biden just miraculously dropping out. And then we're going to talk about Kamala Harris being installed without any primary, which these are the things that happen in Russia, North Korea, and Venezuela. So that's an interesting, unprecedented thing that people on either side of the aisle should be extremely concerned about.
And I want to ask you some questions about that as well, because I'm not American, and I have some interesting questions about that I'm sure our listeners will as well. And then we're going to summarize it with, I did a big presentation for about 250 of the largest real estate investors in the United States. Yes, so we're talking about people who own anywhere from 50 units to 5,000 units. I did a big presentation for them yesterday talking about the pressure on the economy right now and what you need to do as a business owner to basically keep yourself afloat until the election is over.
So we're about 3 months out at the time of this recording, second day of August. Election, I want to say, is 6th or 7th of November. So about 100 days-ish, we're out. So, we've talked on shows before, specifically when we were doing our Sales Velocity TV show about the compression. Actually, I think it was an A2 show. Investment compression is big right now. People are really, really clamming up, and now we're seeing the stock market fold. And like I said in the beginning, but let's start with topic number one. So, Aaron, it's Saturday night. I'm on the way out the door to go to dinner with my son and my mom.
Yep.
We're going to Fleming Steakhouse for dinner, and I get the push notifications from my independent news services that say gunshots heard. Or no, it didn't say gunshots, actually, which was interesting. It said loud popping sounds heard at a Trump rally. And I was like, here it is. I have very specifically predicted for well over a year now, as you know, that they're going for Trump. And I've been hesitant to say they're going to try to kill him, but I'll say it on my show, as I absolutely knew they were going to try to kill him. I don't know who they is, because there's so much, which we'll talk about now, because there's so many different theories. And I don't like to say conspiracy theories, because there's no such thing as a conspiracy. There's only a theory. And there's some really important theories that are happening right now. And the good thing is, from a bipartisan standpoint, Congress unanimously, Democrat and Republican, all were freaking out on the Secret Service. This was the greatest thing I've seen in probably 20 years. Is when
there was actually some solidarity there.
There was uniformity, which was good.
Yeah.
Everybody was scared. And even the real, truly visceral Trump haters, I mean, people who hate Trump more than they love America, these kind of people, there's a fringe left that they hate Trump so much that they would like to see America burn if he does. Yep. Right? They were even like, this is the greatest breakdown in security history. And even the Democrats, who you could sell them anything for any price and they'd buy it. No questions asked. They were even like, there is no excuse for the head of Secret Service to not have seen a sniper setting up shop on a roof with essentially no training, a young kid with a ladder and a gun to access an event with snipers everywhere. My first reaction was, and I posted this on social media, no drones and no helicopters at a Trump rally? Any rally, Biden rally, Trump rally, it doesn't matter. No aerial coverage was my immediate reaction. I was dead on that. But if you look at what has gone on since, the Secret Service, head of Secret Service was fired, and not fired, but she finally stepped down. She took heat from both sides, which was good. Yep. So they need to revamp Secret Service. But the videos are now coming out, and these are grassroots videos. These aren't Andrew or Aaron's videos. There's videos coming out right now. They're showing people like this, Aaron, for well over a minute. What is that guy doing on the roof?
Yep.
Do you see that guy on the roof? This went on, from last I heard, for at least 2 minutes. Which means the first thing that happens, and I'm no military guy, but I have half a brain, is the second that's happening, Secret Service goes like this: get the president off stage. Case closed. That's it.
Swarm that area.
But that's it. Like, that never happened,
Nope.
Which is why this thing stinks. And I'm not a big Trump fan. You're not a big Trump fan, but I don't want to see any American candidate get shot at.
It was a very weird scenario. It was a very weird scenario because when I saw it, I think it's one of those things. It was like when I watched the Twin Towers.
You and I watched. Do you remember? We'll talk about that in a minute.
Yeah, I mean,
it's funny you brought that up.
When I watched the Twin Towers, I thought I was watching a movie. Like my brain had a hard time comprehending
100%
that it was real what I was watching.
I agree.
And I kind of had the same feeling when I was watching the news coverage of what had happened. Like, this can't be real. Like, this is too.
Now, you're in Canada at the time watching this?
I was on a cruise ship in Alaska when I was watching this. And then the first thing I thought to myself was, oh, thank God they missed. Not because I'm a big Trump lover. Oh, thank God they missed, because if they'd taken him out, I can't even imagine what the response would have been in America. Like,
it would have been civil war, Aaron.
Like, everyone talks about civil war all the time, and I think people throw that term around like too loosely. Like, when we talk about civil war is like a serious thing, and I think Americans always talk about civil war like it's something that they could just start tomorrow.
Yeah, but I think people take it literally, like guns in the streets. That's not what civil. I think the correct term is civil and social unrest.
Sure, but I actually thought if he got hit, that might actually trigger civil war.
Then you might be able to use the terminology.
Right. And so in my mind, I was thinking, oh, thank God for the world and for America that didn't happen, because there's just so much tension around Trump. I think it could have triggered something that you might not have been able to
Aaron,
put back in the box.
Look at his MAGA base, they call it, right?
Yeah.
So if you just take the far right MAGA base, there's a far left and a far right in the country, right? The fringe far left, fringe far right. But there's people who, like Trump. You've heard me say this a million times. Trump could throw a baby out of a window, in a small constituency of his base would say, well, he did it it's okay because he did it in a humane way, and it's okay. And even though the baby died, we still need to vote for Trump. Like, all Trump, like, they can't see anything. But the left is way worse, actually, if you ask me, because
you have the far right, you have the far left, and I think the greatest example of the far right was when he lost the election. And I don't want to go down the debate
and you
of
had
whether
people rioting at the Capitol. Horrible.
Yeah, you had people rioting at the Capitol.
Horrible.
Imagine if he'd got shot.
That's my point. Yeah.
Right. So My first thought was, oh my God, thank God he's okay as a human. And thank God he's okay for America, because the thing
100%.
could have completely broken down. And then my brain went to, this doesn't smell right at all. And I want to ask you a question.
Even the worst Trump haters in the world thought that, even though they wish he got hit, and some of them have admitted it online. It's disgraceful. They even were like, this thing kind of stinks.
Yeah. So I have some questions for you, because I'm sure you do a lot more research on this stuff than I do, because again, you're American and I'm not. Is it true? Can you verify for me? Because I saw a piece of news about this, but I saw a post about it, but I don't feel like it's really been covered that much in the news. Mm-hmm. Was Trump's publicly traded company shorted heavily a week before the assassination attempt?
There is absolutely. There was heavy option volume. I think
Okay.
Dillard was the one that alerted us to this. He follows this closely. Did you catch his post on that?
Yeah,
Is that
that's
where you're
right.
getting that from? Yeah.
Yeah.
And he's a financial mind that we followed closely for years. I saw the same thing. Yes, there was heavy short put interest on DJT, which is the Donald J. Trump media company, which is publicly traded. So that stinks.
So that's weird.
That is not good, and that needs to be looked at from an insider trading standpoint.
Because that insinuates that somebody knew something was going to happen.
That's right. That's exactly right.
So that's weird. The fact that the best place to try to shoot somebody was the building that this kid was on, and it wasn't protected at all.
It's just, we could stop right there and say there's nothing else to talk about. I mean,
that's weird.
The first thing you do when you secure areas is you secure rooftops of buildings within a 2-mile radius.
And there was only one, and it was right in the middle.
The lady with a straight face got in front of Congress and said there was a small slope to the building and we didn't want to put our Secret Service people at risk with a straight face.
That's insane. So there's that. And then there's people with phones going, is that a guy? Is that a guy with a gun? I've seen the videos.
Honey, do you see this? He has a gun.
Right.
Just like this.
And then I read in the news that the Secret Service knew and they were told don't do anything until or unless he shoots. And I'm like, what? What are we talking about? Like that,
Aaron, it would take, and again, we're not Trumpers, right?
No.
We're at the end of the day, middle of the road, independent guys. It would take a very, 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 very over the top persuasive argument for anybody to say that somehow people weren't told to look the other way to see if maybe this.
That's what it feels like.
There's just nothing adds up. Like him or hate him, it doesn't make a difference.
And when you texted me, you said, oh my God, what do you think of this? And I said to you, is it the right? Is it the left? Or is it the above? And you responded back something along the lines of, what are you talking about? And so when I was starting to think about this, like it looks so obvious that it was planned and it wasn't. Like you can't have security that bad. That's why it feels like it was planned. So what I was saying to you in that text was,
could it be Trump? Could it be against Trump? Right.
Right. If it's from the Trump side, you could see the upside. Like if it was faked or, maybe he cut his own ear when he hit the ground or like any of these things, you know that his popularity is going to go through the roof and in theory, he should landslide the election. So you could see the benefit of it happening there.
No doubt.
On the left, you could see the hatred. We think he's going to win. Let's take him out. You could see the benefit there. And then you look above and you go, or is it shadow government above? Like, Andrew, I don't know if you know this. Did you know that the sniper was in a BlackRock TV commercial?
I do know this.
Do you know that the company that shorted the stock is a subsidiary of BlackRock?
I absolutely know who BlackRock is. They're absolutely wrecking every aspect of society with what they're involved in.
Don't you think it's weird that the subsidiary of BlackRock shorted the stock and the kid that sniped was in a commercial for BlackRock?
I think it's extremely weird, extremely bizarre, and you've just connected the correct dots.
Again, conspiracy theory, sure. I'm just saying it's odd. Like this whole situation is so odd. And so from my perspective, I don't have a conclusion or a theory on who did it. Like you could see how.
Well, we don't know. We both don't know.
No,
but you just made some very
knows.
Valuable points, and those are actually all facts. So there's no theory here.
I can tell you what I don't believe.
Okay.
I don't believe terrorists flew planes into buildings and they all fell down. Like,
are you trying to tell me that you don't think 3 guys with butter knives and 10 hours of flight training took down the Twin Towers?
I also don't think that a building beside the Twin Towers falling over in the exact same way makes any sense from the other 2 buildings. So you're never.
Are you referring to the building 2 miles down the street that imploded from the bottom, also that had all the Wall Street records in it, or are we talking about a different building?
Yep, that's the building I'm talking about. So I don't believe that happened in the way that it was told, and based on the security, we're talking about the Secret Service, we're talking about the best of the best.
Best of the best.
I don't believe that they fumbled the ball that badly, that this happened and it was an accident. I don't believe that. Now, where you go from there, I don't know.
All right, let me give you my take, because all great points, by the way. And yes, you're right. We were texting about that. And I always listen, whoever's responsible, I want their heads as an American. If Trump was pulling a skit, that guy needs to be removed from the race. If the Biden administration has any hand in this, they all need to be in jail. I don't care. I just don't want to see. I don't want to see this happen to anybody. I want to be clear on that. Okay.
Absolutely.
Now, to your point about
and just to be clear on that, if it was happening with Biden and you're not a Biden fan, we'd be saying the same thing.
100%. They took a shot at this guy at a rally and the Secret Service watched it happen. I would be scared for the country. And that's why I'm glad to see that both parties came together on this. But here's the problem with thinking, based on my analysis, and you made all the great points, is of course you would have thought, could Trump have like set this up, like you said, maybe?
I wouldn't put it past him.
Here's the problem, though. Who does the Secret Service work for?
Well, they work for all presidential candidates, don't they?
They work for the president of the United States. Who's the president of the United States?
Biden, but isn't
Joe
their
Biden.
responsibility to protect any presidential candidate?
Yes, but they work for Joe Biden. They're on Joe Biden's payroll. That's number one. Number two people died. Okay, two civilians died. I think
were those bullets that passed Trump and hit them?
I'm not exactly sure. I would like to know. That's not been talked about.
I feel like that's not. It's a problem that I have that nobody's talking about.
Like, why are we not talking about how that guy died protecting his family? Was it a shot from above? Whose bullet was it? Was it the kid's bullet? Was it another bullet? These are common sense questions.
Because there was multiple fired at Trump. Was he behind Trump and he got hit? I feel like that's being swept under the rug, and I don't like
know.
that.
I feel the same way. The first thing I'd want to know is, how did the guy who tried to protect his family get hit? I'll come back to that. But the Secret Service works for Joe Biden. Just like if Trump was president, the Secret Service works for Trump. So right off the bat, they're employees of the current White House. So the Trump planned this thing goes out the window to me, because the Secret Service doesn't work for him. The Secret Service works for Biden at this time, right? If Trump was president, they'd be working for Trump at this time, right?
Okay.
That's number one. Number two, it's pretty known now that there were multiple shooters. There's been a couple analyses done.
Really?
Yeah. There's at least two shooters. So there was an analysis done, and actually, believe it or not, this was on CNN last week. I'm going to try to pull the clip. Maybe we'll talk about it on a future show. There was an analysis done by somebody who is an analyst when it comes to gunfire and shooting and assassinations and things like this, and they're able to tell the sounds of guns were different, meaning the bullets that came in towards Trump were two different sounds, two different popping sounds, in two different cadences. So they've identified there was a second shooter. Of course, there's the Secret Service, which technically would be a third shooter because they took out the shooter, right? So they're saying there's three different sounds, three different guns, and that needs to be addressed, in my view. So it seems hard to believe to me that Trump would pull up. But here's why I thought it for a minute too, and I said it right away to my son. We were watching it together. Who in their right mind would stop in the middle of being escorted off the stage by 10 Secret Service people and go, I never in a million years, as I think I'm pretty tough and confident, I never in a million years would have stopped to fist pump the audience.
So that leads you to believe that it could have been premeditated and this was his moment to like.
I don't believe it was Trump that created this scene actually after all this, but it was
something that led you to think it could be possible.
For a moment, because what would make him stop like that and be like, rah, right? I mean, I'd be afraid of getting hit in the head if I stood up. I'd want to be crawling. I'll admit it. I'd be crawling to the car.
And let's be clear on our stance on Trump. I'm not a fan of Trump because he's said and done some things that I find extremely vulgar, but he's also done some things that are actually really good, right? But what we do know is he's a little borderline crazy.
Yeah.
And so it actually doesn't surprise me that he would just stop and be like,
I guess the question, Aaron, is would you have done it?
No, I would have run for cover.
Okay. Like I have to say, and even Mark Zuckerberg came out, liberal Democrat, major funder of the Democrat Party, goes on record the week later and goes, I don't care what anybody says, Trump's a badass.
Well, and like we talked about, Zuckerberg has started doing jiu-jitsu, MMA.
Grew his hair all curly.
He's hanging out with a lot of world champion MMA fighters. He's really found, I feel like he's found his soul. I feel like he's found like that. He's really tapped into his male energy over the last couple of years. So,
well, let's be real, Aaron. We've talked about this before. Zuckerberg is on record on the Joe Rogan show 2 years ago stating that the Biden administration and the FBI came into his office and coerced and pressured him to censor information about the Hunter Biden laptop, fact,
correct,
and COVID-19 vaccine safety profiles, fact.
Yeah, you can watch it on Joe Rogan.
You can watch it on Joe Rogan. I wrote a whole article about it in my Renegade report. So he And I thought that was that guy, as soon as he said it, I was like, oh my God, they're going to take a shot at this guy.
I thought so too. I was like, oh God.
But anyways, back to Trump. So I think I think at the end of the day, moving on here, we hope that, and I actually think nothing's going to happen, because look at the JFK situation. He actually died and we don't even know what happened. I mean, there's no chance that some random dude with a 22 on a roof took out JFK. I mean, why the hell would Joe Biden and Donald Trump, both are under obligation in the U.S., Aaron, to unseal the files? I think it's 50 years, and you can unseal classified files on presidential assassinations. Trump said he would do it, didn't. Biden said he would do it, didn't. Both terms are up.
Very interesting.
Very interesting. So
Also,
I think, listen, if we couldn't get a straight answer on JFK, believe me when I tell you, we're not getting anywhere near a straight answer on an attempt on Trump, who is the most hated guy in America by half the country. So
for
chance.
at least 50 years, we know
JFK was a loved guy, and we couldn't get straight facts. Could you imagine trying to get it for Trump?
No
chance. Which is sad, because to your point earlier, I'd love to know how many bullets, how many guns. And the last thing I'll say, actually, Aaron, is, and I watched the Secret Service interview, this lady was the most arrogant, cocky, smug individual under heavy, intense questioning from both sides of the aisle, where almost it was like, and PBD, they did a whole awesome podcast on this. It was like she just was there to go, yeah, no, I guess. Because she knew she was going to be protected. She was going to be asked to leave. And my guess is, and I haven't followed the money yet, and I usually do, but with 99% accuracy, and I'm guessing now, I guarantee she got the biggest severance package you and I we would throw up if we saw her severance package. I would love to be wrong. I haven't researched this, so this is a theory, but I guarantee the Biden administration actually paid her to step down, and she shouldn't have gotten a nickel for trying to shoot a candidate. I guarantee it if I had to guess.
The whole situation stinks. It stinks. Do we know what happened? No.
And when we say they, I really don't know.
I don't know who
but
they
I
is.
can tell you that there is a level of hate for another human being in this country that for some people is bigger than their love for the country. I've been on record saying this for 5 years. Some people hate their hatred for Trump is bigger than their love for the country. That's a person I don't want to be around. That's a very dangerous person, because they hate a human being more than they love their own country. That's scary.
Yeah, and the reality is that even if it had happened and it had been one of those people and somebody who had mental health issues, I'd be like, okay, I understand, because there are those people out there.
Sure.
But it's all the other things in this equation that make me go, that's not the only thing that happened here.
That's right.
Interesting. And then right off the back of it, I was on my vacation going, what is happening in America this week? Right off the back of it, Biden pulls out of the race.
Which also, I always like to look at timing. Timing is fascinating as well. I've always been under the impression, listen, I've said from day one, if Trump says he's going to run again, they're coming for him. They're coming for everything he has. You underestimate, I'm not saying you, Aaron, but people dramatically underestimate who is behind this Democrat Party today. And this is as close to an organized crime mafia ring than I've ever seen in my 51 years on planet. And this isn't even my opinion. I'm going by the most decorated people who've left the party and are saying it. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is number one. I mean, when you kick a Kennedy out of your party, that's case is closed. Secondly is Tulsi Gabbard, who was their biggest up-and-coming female candidate. She ran for president in 2020. I was hoping she'd be Kennedy's VP. She chose not to be. I was hoping even Trump maybe chooses her. Didn't happen as well. She wrote a book last month that says, leave the Democrat Party behind, and she broke down the cabal. So people are underestimating who we're dealing with right here. When Trump said he's running for president, 35 counts, felony counts, and then they became 91 felony counts. But no charges for the 2 years he was out of office. But until he said he was going to run, 91 counts. I said, they're either going to put him in jail or they're going to try to take him out. And exactly both things happen. Now, here's what's the most interesting and concerning to me, and I'll leave off and we'll move on, is the Republican National Convention was Monday night. The shooting was Saturday night before the Monday night. You might not know this because you're Canadian, but you're not on the ballot until you get confirmed on the ballot at your respective convention. So Trump was not on the ballot on Saturday night when he got shot at. Here's something else a lot of people don't know. When you're on the ballot and you get killed, let's say, you can still be voted into office because you're on the ballot. Oh, yeah. Yeah, you could vote a dead guy into office. It doesn't happen, but technically it could. So do you find it also odd that the shot came 2 nights before he was going to be put on the ballot officially, which means, hey, this is our last chance to get him before he goes on the ballot. Then, even if he dies, they can elect him still because they're such rabid fans of Trump. We don't want them electing a dead guy. I mean,
it's another just interesting
it's
point.
Another just, I don't know what it means. It's just the timing is really bad. And then to your point, we'll move on, is then all of a sudden Biden says actually it was a week later. It wasn't the same weekend. It was a week later. The following weekend, he supposedly gets COVID. And then the following Monday, he's out and endorses Kamala, which doesn't even make sense because you can't endorse somebody because there's no primary. So now we move to Biden's out a week later, which makes sense. I've also predicted very publicly that Biden will never make it.
And let's be honest with Biden. If you're just even a fringe watcher of politics, Biden's health is deteriorating rapidly.
The White House lied about it for 2 years.
His cognitive ability, and I feel bad for him because
of course
the party's has clearly tried to prop him up for a while. And
do you feel that that's the right thing to do to the American people, to lie to the American people?
No,
because propping someone up is lying.
And I don't think it's been fair to him, quite frankly,
right.
or his family.
Exactly.
And I expected that somewhere around this time he would drop out. I expected that they would put somebody else in place. So him dropping out wasn't a surprise to me. It was just another very interesting element in basically the same 8-day time frame.
Here's the one thing you're missing, though. He had his chance to drop out. That's why they have primaries. And if he dropped out ahead of the primary and said exactly what he said on his bullshit executive speech, that, hey, I want to make way for a younger generation, then you open the primary and you let people compete in a free market. He didn't do that. He had every chance to do that. When were the primaries? The primaries were they late 2023? I don't remember. Maybe they were early 2024. I don't remember.
Maybe he was feeling like he could push it through. He was strong enough.
My dad has Parkinson's disease. My dad has dementia. My dad's in a nursing home at the age of 77. I've been down this road. My dad is exactly where Joe Biden was exactly 1 year ago. I know every single characteristic and attribute. He lives in my city. Okay. So he wasn't good a year ago. In fact, he wasn't good 2 years ago, which means they've been pulling the wool over the people's eyes for a solid 2 years right now. So the fact that he didn't step aside during the primary time to say, hey, guys, I'm ready to anoint new leaders. Let's have a primary. Kamala could run. Kennedy was trying to become a nominee, and there were multiple others who tried as well, and they just continued to suppress them, and they pushed forward and said he's never been better, I heard, sharp as a tack, and at his best. Those are exact words 1 year ago. Okay? So give me a break. I was born at night, but not last night. You were too. They could have done this the right way. Now, this is also interesting timing and disgusting timing as well, is because now there isn't enough time for a primary because there's only 100 days left. So was it potentially deliberate where you said, let's do it where there isn't enough time so we can install someone, which is also as un-American and as undemocratic as it gets? Because with a primary, the people choose. When you install someone and hand over the delegates, the party chooses. And right now, the party has chosen Kamala. Do
you think that they were gambling? Like they think they were watching the polls and they were saying, if things go sideways, then we'll make this move. And then once the assassination attempt failed,
let's define if things go sideways, meaning if we hit him or we don't hit him, that's sideways.
That's one of the things you could look at.
Jesus.
Or they weren't involved in any of that.
I hope to God they weren't.
Which I do too, obviously. And they were just saying, hey, if the charges against Trump don't stick and he's, gains momentum and whatever, then we'll have this plan B if it looks like we might not win this thing. Do you think that the plan B was premeditated?
I think all of the above. I think that first of all, the polls after the debate, first of all, the debate was fake. You and I did a whole show on the debate. Remember the debate?
Yep.
Remember when Kennedy wasn't allowed to debate?
Yeah.
Even though he met all the polling criteria? Of course you remember. We did a whole show on it. It was very popular, the show. That debate was a test of Biden. His own party tested him in that debate. They needed Kennedy out of the way. That debate was illegal because nobody was on the ballot. But yet they said Kennedy couldn't be in the debate because he wasn't on the ballot. Meanwhile, Trump and Biden weren't on the ballot. So the whole thing was a sham. We know this. We did an
I don't think it
emergency
was,
show.
but I don't think it was illegal. I think it was just manipulated because it was hosted by one of them. Was it CNN?
No. It's. I shouldn't say illegal. You're right. It was as unethical as it gets to hold a debate when no one's on the ballot, because it really isn't. It's really not formal or sanctioned, I should say.
I think it's okay to do it. I just think it's unethical to not include another party who clearly has a chance to.
Yeah, I guess at the end of the day, they can do a debate anytime they want and talk about anything they want, right? But if you're not going to play by the rules and allow a candidate who's met all the polling criteria to be on there, we've talked about this. That happened with
It's
Kennedy.
just unethical.
But here's why. But the point is, they've never ever done debates before the conventions because
Correct.
the conventions make it official. So I said, why would they do a debate before the conventions? And I think they wanted to test Biden's cognitive function because he hasn't been off script for 2 years, and he did exactly what I think they hoped he wouldn't do, but they're glad he did because at least they know now, because he would have got romped in September.
And we would have done that.
Speak.
We would have set it up that way too. Strategically, we would have said we need a trial run here.
Of course, I mean, it was probably a smart move to say it, but again, you wouldn't have had to do that if you were running ethically from the beginning. You wouldn't have had to put an emergency debate up if you weren't hiding the cognitive decline of your president. You would have had him out. You would have persuaded him to get out before the primaries so you could put 6 to 8 people up who are all good candidates that can compete. But this party doesn't work on capitalism and free markets in fair competition. They work on rigging and corrupting things. That's what they did. So here we are now with 100 days out, and you go, oh, I'm going to endorse Kamala. Great, you can endorse anybody you want to. That's your choice, but you don't get to anoint her the candidate. I went on a show. I went on Tommy Laren's show. She's a Fox News contributor a couple of weeks, and we talked about this whole thing. She's on Fox News every single night, and everybody should be concerned on both sides of the aisle. Could you imagine right now if Trump was like, hey, Aaron, I'm going to step out. I'm not feeling it. I'm going to just give it to J.D. Vance. He's going to be the president. He's going to be the candidate. There would be riots in the streets if the Republican Party anointed the VP, running mate, by the way, as the candidate who is going to be on the ticket. Think about that for a minute. So here we are.
I have questions around that because, again, I'm not American. You are. So he basically says, I've decided I'm not going to run.
Mm-hmm.
He says, I think you should vote for Kamala, and Kamala's going to run.
Right.
Why is that an issue? Like, and excuse my ignorance, right? Why is that an issue if she wants to run and he wants to give his blessing to it? Why is it an issue?
It isn't an issue if she wants to run, and it isn't an issue if he wants to support her to run.
Okay.
The problem is she's not running. She's being anointed, which means the people are completely out of the primary and out of the choice. This is a democracy where the people choose the candidate.
So the issue in your mind is that you shouldn't be able to.
It isn't even my mind. It's how America works.
Right. I just want clarity for the listeners. And so in your mind, it's fine to do that, but that she should have had to go through the primaries to be elected as the representative for that party.
The United States of America is driven by primaries and election integrity. And that's exactly what that is. The primaries are designed for the candidates to compete and sell the American people why they should be the chosen one. You saw it happen with Trump, DeSantis, Nikki Haley, Vivek Ramaswamy, all of them. Tim Scott, there were 8 of them, I believe. That was the primary. They were competing to be the Republican candidate.
Okay, so let's take a step backwards. In a situation where, and I don't know if this has ever happened before, somebody has gone through the primaries and they've got the votes like Biden did, and they either got sick or they didn't want to, or they died. Has there ever been a scenario like what's supposed to happen there? Like, should the elections get pushed off and now there has to be new primaries? Like, what would be in your mind the legal alternative that should have happened?
Well, because of the timing, which we're talking about now, and the fact that it's very close out, they don't give themselves a lot of time to maybe structure a primary. The right thing to do, the American thing to do, again, it doesn't matter if it's Trump or Biden. If Trump did this, it would be the same conversation, is you would have wanted to say, we are going to have a quick or a snap primary because we're now going to have to put candidates on the table, and we're going to have to see who wants to challenge Kamala or anybody else that wants to run, and we're going to have a primary.
Okay.
The American democracy thing to do. These are the people who every single day they're like a broken record now. They're so fake. This is the most important election ever. We're fighting for the soul of our democracy. There couldn't be a bigger shit on democracy than installing a candidate. They do this in Russia. They do this in Venezuela. They just did it in Venezuela last week, by the way. They did it with Putin last year. They installed Putin. Putin had plenty of people running against him, but they wouldn't. They don't allow it, right? So that would have been the right thing to do, is say, listen, because this is a democracy, right? We are going to have to get our asses in gear and figure out who is going to be the Democrat presidential candidate. Kamala Harris, I endorse her. I think she'd be good, great. But if there's anybody else that wants to step up and come to the table, we're now going to have a primary on August 1st. Let's say right before the convention, which is, I think, August 19th. And we're going to have to do this all over again because it's the people's choice. And there is no other way to look at it. Now, what they're going to do and what they've already done is they're going to spin it and say, well, we don't have to do that if we don't want to. That's like saying, well, listen, you can smoke a pack of cigarettes in front of a family with 5 kids because you're sitting outdoor at a restaurant, but it doesn't mean you should, right? You know it's wrong. I mean, you can technically do anything, but installing a candidate and not having a primary couldn't be more undemocratic.
Well, my question for you is it wrong or is it illegal?
I don't know if it's illegal per se, because it's never happened to my knowledge, but it's absolutely the wrong message you want to send if you're a champion of democracy, to not allow the people to choose their candidate. Now, there's been very big Democratic donors and people have come out and said, why is she our candidate? Says who? You? We never chose her. I mean, she might be the VP. She's a natural next step. Great. That's fair.
And maybe she would have won it in a landslide. There just wasn't any vote.
She would have lost huge, which is also my skepticism as to why she was. So here's the thing that doesn't add up also, Aaron, is they were so quick to anoint her. But here are the facts. This is the lowest approval rating in American history, by the way, for a VP. She ran for president in 2020, and she was out with a 6% approval rating before the convention. And this is somebody who, in office, their first job was the border. We have the largest humanitarian crisis in drug trafficking and human trafficking crisis in U.S. history right now at the border. And she was in charge of the border. They quietly pulled her off and never let her speak again. And she's frankly just not an intelligent person at all. Biden hired her, his words, not mine, because she's a woman of color. His words were, I want to hire a woman of color for the vice president. His words, not mine. So she was really put there for all the wrong reasons. I don't think it's ethical why she was chosen. She didn't have any qualifications. She's part of the wreckage of California. I have a laundry list of her policies in California. Her and Newsom combined over the last 10 years absolutely wrecked that state, literally wrecked it. So this is somebody, Aaron, where you go, and my sources are very good. I follow politics very closely. My sources all along have said they probably will put Michelle Obama up because she's an Obama and has a pretty good reputation and she's likable. There isn't one political analyst, Aaron, on either side of the aisle, by the way, who thought for even a minute that she could be elected, Kamala Harris, but now she's anointed. Get it?
Yeah, it's very interesting. The one thing I would challenge you on there is you said she's not intelligent. She might not be intelligent in the way that you view intelligence. Nobody makes it to that level of politics without being intelligent, bro.
I think you're 100% wrong. Here's why. Because politics is a game of connections. It's not a game of intelligence.
But it's a game that has to be won. You got to be super sharp to make it there.
But not as VP. So now here's what you're not understanding. VPs are also anointed. VPs are not elected. Remember? So when Trump last week goes, J.D. Vance is my guy, there's no primary. There's no vote for J.D. Vance.
He seems like an odd duck too.
No, he's a clean cut normal guy. I mean,
the
media will make him sound like an odd duck, but that's the same media who thinks boys can go have sex change surgery and turn into girls. So where's the credibility there? But to your point, VPs, they're installed. They're chosen. So when Biden chose her as the VP, he wanted to go with the woman of color thing. Fine, that's your prerogative. But
still doesn't change my opinion though.
But she doesn't earn it though. She didn't.
Yeah, but
she
it
didn't
doesn't
get
change
the
my opinion
vote.
though. And here's why it doesn't change my opinion. To reach that level of connections
is one thing. Intelligence is another.
That level of network, that level of relationships. She might not be intelligent in the way that you think, but she is razor sharp, obviously, in some other areas, because you just don't get there by stumbling and bumbling into that spot.
Totally disagree. She is
okay. We can disagree.
She is one of, and again, I would be saying this if she was a man, a woman, black, yellow, or green. I know the spin that likes to, when you challenge a woman of color, the spin comes out and they make, if you wouldn't be saying that if she wasn't a woman of color. Yes, I would. I treat people the same way because I don't fall into the DEI cult. All right. Or everybody's a person. Everybody is treated the same way in my view. There is no skin color. There is no gender. This is a person that if you spend time, and I'm going to ask you if you've spent a considerable amount of time listening to her speeches,
0.
I have. Okay. I can't tell often the difference between a Saturday Night Live skit and a Kamala Harris speech. It's almost as if she's drunk most of the time she's talking. There's either heavy cackling or giggling or just weird rants that go off in different directions. So I do not believe she's that intelligent. Connections, I agree with you. You do need to be pretty well connected to even get into a spot in politics. But you'd be surprised how corrupt politics is in America today, where you can be relatively dumb and somewhat connected and still find your way up.
So, State of the Union is we've had a nominee with an attempted assassination. We've had a nominee drop out. We've had that nominee ordain his vice president.
Well,
and
president now presidential candidate, not vice president.
His vice president to become the presidential candidate. And now we've also had some interesting new things occur with the third possibility, which is RFK. And you want to talk a little bit about what you're seeing in that current circus.
Well, the independent situation to me is one of the greatest things that could ever happen in America. I'm working with RFK's team right now. I'm part of the finance team. I am very vocal on my support for him. I have loved him for a long time, mainly because of his work with children in children's health defense and the charity I supported. I couldn't even believe it when he decided he was going to run for president. It was like, I was thrilled. I mean, it was like
Christmas. I remember when you told me.
But here I was. I'm an independent conservative guy. So I was a big fan of Ron DeSantis, as you know. We both are. We love what he's done with Florida, multiple years ahead of everybody else with the way the state is run. And that's all now coming to fruition. I thought he would have been the best guy. I thought Trump had too much baggage. You know this. We've talked about this. Mm-hmm. And I thought DeSantis would have been a great new up-and-coming face for the party. But as soon as RFK ran, I immediately said, that's my guy, because that's always been my guy. Right. Mm-hmm. I don't have a loyalty to a party. I'm an independent guy. That's how you know I'm not in a friggin' cult on the team. Oh, no matter what they throw at me, I'm going to support it. No, you should support people based on people, not based on the party that you affiliate with. You're an American, not a damn Democrat or Republican. But the independent thing is interesting to me because I think it has the capabilities. And I'm talking with the RFK team right now. I've suggested this is if you don't win, it's a long shot, we know, but his numbers are phenomenal. Does the door now open for a formal third party, whether it be called the Independent Party? It's already called the We the People Party in about 10 states. Because in order to get on the ballot, it's a cool name too. In order to get on the ballot in certain states, you can't do it as an independent. You have to formally form a party to get on the ballot, right? So the Libertarian Party is on the ballot in 50 states. Libertarian Party has a very small constituency. The We the People Party is now a formal party in California, for the record, just to give you some context. And that's RFK's party. So I would love to see a third party, non-establishment, We the People, maybe that isn't the name, independent party, come out of this led by RFK, because I think that could really create a nice swell for the next cycle, which is 2028. Because I think that there's some analysts I follow that think RFK's time is in 4 years, not now. They think that right now he's put himself on the map, and now people really know his stance, and they know that all the labels were fake and false. Every label they assigned to this guy was a complete sham, and every single one of them is now proven. The anti-vax thing, that was really the big one, right?
They went at him hard with the anti-vax thing.
Well, they had to, because he basically exposed the whole entire vaccine industry, which is a shoddy industry at best, right?
Yeah, he's not a fan of that industry.
Well, who would be? I mean, when you know what this guy knows, I mean, the guy spent hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of hours in lawsuits. He's seen a lot. He's seen more than we've ever seen, right? So when he goes after these industrial complexes, he's not going to be a popular guy. No. And that's why the Republican and the Democrat Party both don't like him. But he's a for the people guy.
Yeah.
Right. He's a guy that I think has a very, I just don't know right now. I'm starting to see it 3 months out. I don't know if America, we've said this before, you and I don't know if America's smart enough to see it yet. I don't want to sound arrogant, but if that's an arrogant comment, I'll guilty as charged, is they're still actually caught up watching the bickering of the two parties when they have a formidable Kennedy, no less, who is like, you couldn't listen to one long form interview and go, wow, this guy's policies would be horrible for me and my family. You couldn't say it about one topic. And yet, the media is silencing the independent candidate. That just goes to show you how broken the media is, how broken politics is, how broken the two-party system is, and how truly stupid America is, unfortunately.
Well, and I think that, I don't know if it comes down to stupidity per se.
I should say ignorance, not stupidity.
It actually, that's the right word. It's ignorance, because there's just so much history and so much conditioning on the two-party system.
Exactly.
That when you combine that element where people don't even think you could vote a third party in, like it doesn't even register in their brain.
It doesn't register. You're right.
Doesn't even register as an option.
I'm like,
I think if
really
he was,
not see that
I think if he was in either party right now, I think he wins.
Do you know the latest grassroots polls, Aaron, showed that if he was in a head-to-head, so let's say he was the Democrat candidate, which he should have been, by the way.
I did see that
against Biden.
I did see that chart.
I posted that. He wins. He crushes he would have crushed Biden, put it that way. Biden wouldn't have even won the primary, which is a whole different story, right? So why did they edge him out, right? So he would have beat Biden hands down. He would have beat Kamala Harris hands down, or anybody else in the Democrat Party. But the poll showed he's the only candidate that can beat Trump head-to-head.
Yeah, I saw that.
And he doesn't beat him by a little. He beats him by a 10% landslide. And that's grassroots polls. Now, when I say grassroots polls, Aaron, I mean not the normal polls you and I see from Rasmussen and all these big, Cornell University, Ivy League schools. Those are partisan polls. Those polls are done by the Republican and the Democrat Party. I'm talking about the polls where they go out into the streets and ask Americans, boots on the ground, who would they vote for right now based on these core issues? And he keeps winning in a landslide in those grassroots polls. The question is, when you have the DNC suing the states to keep you from getting on the ballot, Republicans don't really play around with it. They don't care. They'll compete at least. They don't need to spend their time and money trying to remove somebody from a ballot like this is the Soviet Union. That's what the Democrats do, and that's what they're doing, which is pretty scary. But the suppression of him is a problem. I didn't expect it to be like this. I expected the censorship to be hard, but it's really, really hard now. And that's going
It is very hard. I guess my question for you is there any point in the next 90 days where that suppression can no longer happen? Like, if he gets on enough ballots, does he get into a debate where people can actually finally see him on mainstream TV? Is there a tipping point possibility?
It's a great point, because we talked about that debate a second ago. So yes, when we get into formal debates now, post RNC and DNC conventions, formal debates, then the answer is absolutely yes, because you can't play games now. Because now you're on the ballot. He's on the ballot in 43 states, by the way. So let's say you're on the ballot in 50 states come September. And of course, Trump is on the ballot. And let's just say Kamala Harris is on the ballot. So now you have three people on the ballot. So you can't now, with a straight face. And by the way, CNN was sued, by the way. So technically there was some legalities. CNN was sued for election interference by the Kennedy. Yeah. So they are interfering with an election by keeping them off the ballot. But you're right. You can't get kept off the next ballot, because that will be formal. And that will be based on who's on the ballot. So the little lie they played of he can't debate because he's not on the ballot, even though nobody was on the ballot, doesn't work next time because everybody's on the ballot. So to your point, yes, he gets stage time now. Now there's three people in the race, legitimately. Now there's two debates, most likely. And now you do actually have some mainstream media time of the American people being presented with the independent candidate on primetime TV. And that's going to go bad for everybody, because he will annihilate Trump in a debate. And Kamala Harris, to my point earlier, she will be a deer in headlights on any real question like chronic disease crisis, war, foreign policy, economic policy, dead.
What will be interesting is to see what type of impact that has, because I just believe when you've got the media hammering people, as the media does, and I'm in the media space, this. Yeah. So exactly. I see this massive ramping up, like I always do every 4 years. Mm-hmm. When you're saying somebody's name over and 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 over again, it's programming. That's actually what it is programming. Mm-hmm. And people haven't been programmed with his name, and they're not going to get programmed with his name until 60.
Is it enough time, right?
It's not enough time to get programmed. Now, what you said earlier was actually interesting, which is maybe that's his stepping off point for 4 years from now.
Right.
because then he can't be ignored. Then all of a sudden, the people that haven't been paying attention go, "Oh, who's this guy? This guy's interesting."
And also, Aaron, technically, I mean, 4 years is a long time. You could actually take the next 4 years. Let's call it 2025 and beyond. I mean, you could be technically, campaigning, so to speak, that early.
But he's also not. He's no spring chicken though either.
Well, look at the other guys.
No, I understand that.
He's 69, so 72 isn't a 69, 72, 73 isn't a tall order when you just had two guys go 79 and 81 respectively with that. We were on the fringe of them being the candidates, right? Or one of them still is.
Well, two things
personally, I think Trump's too old. He's 79.
Oh, well, I was just going to say two things. Number one, I feel like there's got to be an age limit.
75, buddy, I think.
I think it's got to be 65.
I think 70. Let's meet in the middle.
No, I think it could be 60.
I don't know about that. There's some pretty sharp dudes in their 70s.
I understood, but if like forced retirement is at 65, I don't think you should be able to be the president after 65. I mean,
there needs to be some sort of age limit for sure.
I think,
what you run into then is you run into age discrimination stuff, and that typically violates democracy and constitution.
Okay.
But listen, you get to a point where, I mean, it seems a little ridiculous at 81 with a straight face that they were going to run this guy. Biden.
Father time spares no man.
Yeah.
So,
exactly.
that's just biology.
Yes.
And that's why I think there should be an age limit. But the other thing, looking at RFK, if you ever watch any videos of him online, he keeps himself fit, bro.
Good. Wouldn't you want a guy like that running the country?
Yeah. You watch him
Aaron,
doing
I've seen
you watch him
videos.
Doing pull-ups and push-ups at Muscle Beach. I'm like, bro, looks good.
Exactly. Look at the people who are running our public health divisions right now. They look like they look like they're ready to die any moment. They smoke a pack of cigarettes a day. They eat nothing but carbohydrates and sugar. They're walking diabetes train wrecks, and they're giving health advice. I'd love. Listen, he's the only guy right now, by the way, very important to me. Number one issue for me. Everybody has their issues, right? Top one, top two, top three. Chronic disease crisis. There is no candidate, not Biden, not Kamala Harris. Right? I don't even think she knows the meaning of the word. Trump, not talking about it. J.D. Vance, not talking about it. Nobody's talking about the chronic disease crisis that is wrecking America right now. Number one issue, chronic disease crisis. Number two issue, to your point earlier, the debt crisis. Why are the candidates on the Republican and the Democrat side not talking about the chronic disease crisis and not talking about the debt crisis? Two things. There is nothing more important than those two things that will wreck every aspect of society. America's basically broke, funding wars that are not our own, and we couldn't be more sicker. What else is there? What are you going to talk about? Racism? Give me a break.
And here's the thing, like we were going to talk about business today, but I really think we should say to our listeners, look, we're going to tee you up on the what can you do and how is this impacting business stuff for next week, because to try to go down that rabbit hole right now is we're going to be on here for 2 hours.
I think it's perfect for the next episode is we say, okay, now maybe chronic disease crisis is a different one. We talked about it actually on a previous episode.
Yeah.
But we were going to talk about debt today. We can touch on it and we'll talk about it specifically on the next issue. Aaron, why is no one talking about the debt crisis except Robert F. Kennedy?
I've got a bunch of stuff to share next week, but like,
and what does it mean to you, the
business
American
owner
person, if you're in America, the business owner, the entrepreneur? How do you plan for this? Because I'm making some decisions and I'm making some changes in my financial planning based on the fact that America is in a lot of trouble financially right now.
Well, and I'll just tease everybody with this. Usually when there's economic problems, and I'm talking about economic problems impacting business owners, because that's what I've always been. I've never been in a scenario where there's more than two elements pushing down on you. Right now, I just did a presentation yesterday.
2 forces, right?
2 forces, 4 forces pushing down on business owners right now. And I want to share some math and some graphs and some solutions next week. And so hopefully that gets you excited enough to show up. But what I wanted to end with today, Andrew, was that I go to the gym all the time. You go to the gym all the time. That's part of our routines. I was at my gym this morning. Guy there, new, on vacation, introduced himself. He's from Lubbock, Texas. Standard Lubbock, Texas guy. Super nice guy. Gold guns, God, football, that guy, And we had a great conversation. Well, he said he was a police officer for a long time. I don't think he's still a police officer, but he could be. He opened up a CrossFit gym in Lubbock. And he was saying to me, I'm surprised that the police have no guns here. And he said, really concerned me. I would never go out.
In Cayman?
Yeah, in Cayman.
The police don't carry guns?
No, it's English law.
Really?
English police officers don't carry guns, and neither do ones. They have special units that will show up with heavily armed to the teeth, but it's not standard practice for them to carry guns.
Did not know that.
Because guns are illegal here. So you don't have a proliferation of guns in the marketplace, therefore needing to be armed all the time, which I 100%. Yeah, I 100% believe there's no way I would go out in Texas as a police officer without being armed. The average person has 4.5 guns in Texas, so there's no chance, right? But what he was saying is that what we're both talking about is the proliferation of mental health issues in America right now.
Mm-hmm.
And it came out because he said, there's this overpass right by the gym. And he said, we walked through it 3 times yesterday. And his wife said, never seen a homeless person here. This is very odd. And he said, yeah, that is very odd. He said, if we were going under an overpass anywhere else, there would be 2 or 3. This is very interesting. He said, are there not homeless people here? I said, well, of course there's going to be homeless people anywhere, but it's a different society and how we handle it. And also we've got sunshine, clean food, this, that, whatever. In America, if you look at especially some of the sprawling metropolises, homelessness and mental health and crime because of mental health is out of control. And he said it's so disheartening right now for the police force in America. He gave me an example. He said, Andrew, when he first went through the recruitment process in 2010, he said there was 800 people that showed up to try and get into the police force. As of last year, there was 79 that showed up.
Oh my God.
He said, guys don't want to come anymore because there's no consequences to any laws. So it's catch and release everything. He said, the pay has not really gone up. So they're very underpaid and overworked. They're all getting stressed out. They're all getting PTSD. They're feeling no support. And the proliferation of mental health is out of control. Mm-hmm. And I said to him, do you feel like those people should be in prison? So I was interested to hear
the people who are suffering from mental health issues?
The people that are causing crime because of mental health issues.
Oh,
I
see what you're saying.
I wanted to see what his take on. And when I say mental health issues, I really mean everything from, legitimate brain issues to drug addiction to whatever. These are all mental health issues. Mm-hmm. And he said, absolutely not. I believe they need to be put into an institution that can help them, because jail isn't going to fix them. Mm-hmm. And then eventually they're just going to be back out on the street. They need actual help. We only have 2 institutions that can help people. We really need 6 where I'm at in Lubbock right now. And he said the whole feeling is overwhelming to us that are in the line of duty. And I don't know where it stops. And I had to walk away. And that's why I opened my CrossFit gym.
Wow.
That grassroots
that should
response,
tell you all you need to know about the chronic disease crisis we're in, which covers mental
that's
health.
why I mentioned it. Yeah. Is there is a serious food, health, vaccination, maybe
pharmaceuticals,
water, and it's making people crazy.
It is, Aaron,
and it has to be turned around, because it's becoming a real pandemic. Forget about fake pandemics. It's becoming a real pandemic.
Absolutely. I'm so glad you brought this up. I want to say a couple things. When I say chronic disease crisis, I'm absolutely referring to mental health being a big piece of that, right? Of course, it's diabetes and cancer and heart disease. Those are the big 3. But mental health is on another level right now. Interestingly, one of RFK's very first initiatives is, and I don't know if you know this, it's interesting you brought this up. He actually has a plan to build out in nature and create mental health institutions in nature that exist in the middle of nowhere, Aaron, where people can get back to their nature roots and heal without.
That is such a
I could show you some of his plans, and it's like when you hear it, you're like, you just feel amazing when you listen to what he has to say.
That just made my day. Like somebody
does
actually using their brain.
And this isn't just a random mention. This is why I'm like, why is no one else talking about the chronic disease crisis but him? He actually has a plan to heal, his words, to heal the mental health crisis in America, and not just with pharmaceuticals. Pharmaceuticals are a last resort, not a first resort. Most people can be healed with nature, with their own functional being, right? So that's number one. That's a really good point you brought that up. Aaron, do you know that RFK has also been extremely marginalized? And I would say right behind his anti-vax bullshit label is his stance on the shooting situation in America. So for example, when there's a school shooting, I've been saying this for 10 years. Give me an autopsy and show me the amount of pharmaceuticals, specifically antidepressants, that the shooters are on. If there's none, great. I'd love to know. I want to. If I'm a doctor or an analyst or somebody who does autopsy or investigation, I want to rule things out. Right. So what I think
that's a great idea. I mean, they're starting to.
Oh, Aaron, hold on. He was called a conspiracy theorist. He was called dangerous to our democracy because he felt that because of the onslaught of drugs that have landed in our heads, these are mind drugs, by the way, and because of the side effects listed in black and white on the labels, psychosis, you might want to kill yourself, might want to kill other people, the list is endless, on their labels, he said, we need to be investigating every single shooting in America. Blaming the guns is like blaming the car for getting in an accident. You got in the accident, not the car, right? So blaming the guns, fine. Maybe there's crazy gun laws that should be, of course, there should be more restriction for sure.
Maybe there's some amendments that have to be done.
It's too easy to get them. We all know this, okay? But that's not the point. The point is, it isn't the guns.
Why
that
are
killing
people shooting people?
It's the person pulling the trigger. And he has said all along, why are we not investigating the minds and the cocktails that are inside their head and the mental health issues that the shooters are having? Because they're not regular people who woke up one day looking to shoot up a school. They're suffering from something. And Aaron, I'm telling you right now, I don't have a lot of data on this. 99.9% of them are hopped up on pharmaceutical cocktails, from Ritalins to Adderalls to antidepressants to Zolofts, and the concoction and the cocktail of them being together will make you absolutely nuts. And all he wanted was the data, and he was completely censored. Do you realize where we're at right now?
Can we just look?
No, they won't look.
What's
Aaron,
wrong with saying? Can we just? I mean,
this is why I've been on a soapbox about the whole COVID-19 vaccine thing for how long now? They won't look. They won't look at the data. It's right there. I have it on that topic. But on the mental health thing and shooters, why would every single school shooter, including the guy who took a shot at Trump, by the way, there's our most recent example. Okay. So that autopsy would tell you exactly what he's on, and his health record would say exactly what was prescribed. But guess who won't look at it? Guess who won't look at it?
Well, anybody by the sounds of it.
The White House will not look at it. The White House is the head coach. If it's Trump or Biden, they're the head coach. So when someone says we need to look at this to protect the people, you look at it. You don't play politics because Pfizer's paying you off to be quiet. The lobbying groups just donated $3 billion. You look at the data and rule it out. These are our children. This is all RFK has ever done for the last 20 years, to be censored and marginalized, from the vaccine topic to the shooting topic to the mental health thing. Do you understand that this is, I mean, I sometimes don't even know if I'm in America anymore. These are basic things.
Well, and what's really weird about that is that if you look at something that people would understand, I think fairly easily, would be the NFL.
Okay. Oh, yes.
Right. So the NFL has had a lot of suicides after careers that they've had some pretty considerable violence, domestic violence, after careers. And what they've started to do is, when that happens, they do an autopsy on their brain, and they're looking to see if these players have CTE.
That's right.
And they're wanting to know if these violent episodes are caused by CTE, because if they are caused by CTE, then they're saying we need to be more proactive with rule changes, with equipment, with protection, with whatever, because we can't have our players killing themselves. 10 years after they die.
Junior Seau? That was so sad.
Oh, super sad, right? And so this just is a common sense thing that you do to either combat it or rule it out.
Do you want to know what the difference is? I'm going to ask you. What's the difference between analyzing the skull of a linebacker who killed himself because he had severe depression versus analyzing the skull of a shooter who took out 10 kids out of school with a machine gun at 16 years old? Trivia question for you.
Well, it's money.
It's an industrial complex because they know what they're going to find when they open the brain. They're going to find that the entire pharmaceutical industry will be exposed on day one, no questions asked, and there it is.
It's money.
There is no industrial complex involved in analyzing a linebacker's skull. But they know what they're going to find when they analyze the skull of the shooter at the Trump rally, because they know that dude is probably hopped up on 15 different cocktails, all of it prescribed, no questions asked by a doctor. These are glorified drug dealers, and they're wrecking the mental health of this country single-handedly.
So where do we go from here? Because we need to wrap this show
Well,
up.
yeah, I mean, it's back to the chronic disease crisis, right? It's something we've talked about quite a bit. We will come back to under this health component of our 5 pillars of our show. It was a great conversation today on the Trump situation, the Biden situation, the election in 100 days.
Isn't it crazy how fast the time goes when you're talking about things you actually want to talk about?
Yeah, I mean, these are things that people should be talking about. That's the thing, right? These are great conversations to have. I enjoy economics and politics personally. I follow the economy closely. I believe it's tied to politics. You don't follow it as close as I do because you're in America, which makes perfect sense. But you and I come back to a lot of the same issues where it does tie back to your business and the economics, and some of the financial planning decisions you need to make will be based on. And again, I think we pivot to this debt crisis, talking about making financial moves. I think on the very next episode next week, we want to be talking about what does this debt crisis even mean that nobody's talking about but RFK, by the way. What does it mean to you and your family? What does it mean to your business if you're a business owner? That's really important, because the debt crisis is what's causing inflation, which is causing you to have less money in your pocket, and it's causing your dollars to go not as far as they have in the past. That's a policy thing.
And we're not just going to talk about debt. We're going to talk about 3 other things. Maybe we should call it the financial Molotov cocktail, because that's really what it is.
Whatever you want to call it, that's our next topic for sure. I love it. I think it's a great segue, great way to end right here. Great conversation as always. That's Aaron. I'm Andrew. Great one here today. We'll see you on the very next episode. Hope you enjoyed this one today. More to come.